thing that we actually did as I toggle through this is we went and toured the existing facilities to note the deficiencies associated with it. And uh, for the most part, the PD is operating out of a little bit less than half of the space that we would warrant or think that would be warranted for a policing facility. After concluding the existing conditions, we then went through an effort of developing a program. And so the program had a couple different pieces to it, so I'll bring up the summary pages here. So the first thing that we did is we developed a questionnaire. We distributed that to key staff and met with those different stakeholders to develop a program piece associated with it. And then the program, for the most part, basically is a spreadsheet that itemizes the individual rooms, the spaces in them, the adjacencies associated with those, the sizes, quantities, all that sort of thing. So we developed a draft, reviewed it with key staff, made adjustments associated with that, and then we toured facilities to help validate that. So the first step, and you kind of seen the final results, if you would, here, was developing the program, and we came up with just under 13,200 square feet of space that was required. Just keep in mind that the draft actually was a little bit larger than that. This is the final results. So if I scroll to the next page here, these are the individual divisions within PD. And I know you can't see it very well on this screen, but it is in your guys' packet. So we broke that into a few different pieces. One of them was the lobby and the public areas that would be open to the public, or potentially open to the public. The next one was police operations, which included admin, patrol, and detectives. And then there was the sally port and booking area and facility support spaces. And then we also tracked what the exterior requirements were. So not just the public parking, but the secure parking, any spaces on the outside. So that's what the next few pages are. So I'm going to just quickly scroll through those. So that's each of the divisions that we went through. And this is based on our past experience and space standards from IECC. So just a couple of on that. This. And then we went and toured 3 different facilities that were similar in nature. And so those included item number 1, which was Sandy PD. And then item number 2, or site number 2, was a community policing facility for the city of Gresham, and that was located out in Rockwood. And then the last one was Westland PD. So scroll through those. I'm sorry, I said Westland, but I meant Candy. So the first one here is the Sandy PD, and so we just kind of noted the size of it, the amount of staff that they currently have, and what it was designed for. And then we did the same thing for Gresham. And if we go to the next page here, you can actually see the Candy PD. Once we were done touring those, and I did want to highlight that we were afforded the opportunity to have Councillor McBride and Councillor Saunders join us. So we sat down and kind of scrutinized the program and made some adjustments to it, and then there were some adjustments that came afterwards, a little ways after, to land on that 13,200 square feet that I highlighted before. But that was the rigorous process that we went through to actually confirm the sizing that would be required for 20 years of growth. The next task that we went through then was to evaluate a number of different sites that the city had wanted to look at. There were 7 sites that were identified, and so these were locating those 7 different sites in the city proper. City staff actually performed the zoning information that would restrict or govern how the site was actually developed. So this is a table that shows the requirements associated with each of the different sites. And then our next task was to go through and not design the building, but to quickly test the site through a test bed to see if that building would fit on the site and what were the constraints or challenges associated with that so that those could be ranked. So keep in mind, each of these schemes are just showing one possible way that the site can actually be laid out. It might not be the best scenario, but it's one to just kind of illustrate how it could work. So this is the site that was at State Street, just across from City Hall. This one would require us to elevate the building to be able to get the dedicated parking and tuck it into the site. So there's some challenges associated with that scheme. And the next one here was referred to as the Cascade site. So this is down next to the highway. And so we laid out how that can actually be configured with access off of Wine Country Avenue on the south side and Cascade Avenue on the north side. And showing dedicated public parking in the front, secure parking in the back. And then the next one that we looked at was the Cascade Lot. And so here the building pretty much fills out a good portion of the site, but it did fit on that site. And the next one that we looked at was City Hall itself. This one, not surprising to you since you're intimately familiar with it, would require some pretty significant tweaks to try to build a new building around it or replace the existing structure, so that had its own challenges. And we also looked at a couple sites that were up the hill. One of them was the pool sites, and so configuring how that might be able to configure next to the existing fire station. So we laid out that, so you can see the public parking here on the left with the building, and then secure parking on the right side. And then the next one that we looked at is just across the street from it, and this is Public Works. And so here we laid out how we might be able to configure the parking in the building and still provide some level of visual connection from 18th Street. So this one has the building elevated over the top of parking here with the access to the building either off 18th Street or in the Public Works yard. And then the last site that we looked at was the Columbia Lot site. And we looked at development of the east side or the west side lot. The west side lot looked to be the better strategy of actually being developed. And so this is how we configured a 13,200 square foot building with secure parking on it, maintaining the charging stations that are off to the west side, and preserving the public parking on the east side there next to the building. And so you can also see we're proposing that the entry to the building would be off Columbia Street, closer to the public parking here. With the displacement of the public parking with this building being built on it, as Will had indicated, it would make sense that the city be interested in replacing that parking. So after we completed those different test fits, then we were able to actually go through and rank the sites. And so we use the IECC guidelines for evaluating the sites. There's 18 different criteria. These are the different criteria here. And then this is the table that was developed as a result of the ranking. So for each of the different sites, you'll see HR, Hood River, and then M for McKenzie. So we independently ranked them, and then we came together to share what our notes were. And then down to the bottom, you can actually see how the sites actually ranked. And the Columbia Lot was deemed as being the most appropriate site for the different conditions that we were looking at, pretty significantly, you could say. And so that gives you a very quick overview of the tasks that we actually went through. So with that, I can stop sharing and go just turn it over to questions, or do you need to share and ask questions?
I can't see any hands up. Is there anyone that has questions?
I think Council Greenham's raising his.
Okay, I can't see everyone in this because of the screen share.
That's okay, I'll speak up next time.
Sorry.
I have some questions about the ranking criteria. You had mentioned it was based on some type of standard or something. What was the standard of that?
So this is the criteria that we evaluated it against in the sites. And so these are criteria that are established by the International Association of Chiefs of Police. And so there's a number of different pieces on here, and the objective, of course, is to make it so that it is a very objective evaluation of the sites. So the cost of land, whether you own the land or not, in other words, the size of the site, the shape of the site, Each of those things have their own challenges associated with how the site may be able to be developed.
Interesting. So for each one of these items, then is there a rubric that you use? I mean, is there actually data behind this that we're not seeing? Or was it just kind of a subjective evaluation?
So for each one of those different pieces, we rank them on a scale of 1 to 7 because there were 7 different sites.
Mm-hmm.
So that was the matrix that we actually used as far as evaluation between them.
Right, but when you went in and you looked at, and you thought about how to rank, say like the response time, there was a set of response times, or response times estimated for the ranking?
Perfect. Let me answer something not related to response times, then I'm going to turn it over to the chief that can talk about that. So for each of these different things, we actually took the time to actually think about how, like, so I'm going to say items number 5, 6, and 7. Those are for public access. So we looked at where the proximity of it was in relationship to the denser portions of the population and how easy it was to get to and from the site. And then, Chief, can you chime in on the response time?
So when we looked at response time, we're looking at flow to and from locations as far as quality access roads. That's what we were looking at as far as what meets to go to the freeway. We can reach the west side of Hood River via 63 going off to 62. And as far as, again, hitting Oak Street and going to the main thoroughfares of the city.
Thanks, Chief. I guess what I'm trying to get at though is that, you know, for a particular ranking criteria, let's say the difference between like a 1 and a 4, were there a range of response times that you got fell into those ranking criteria? Or was it just kind of using your best professional judgment? I guess that's what I'm getting at.
Yeah. Go ahead, Will.
Okay, I think I understand your question, Councilor Coonan, and what these were not, it's not that 4 means a 2-minute response time and a 5 means a 1:45 response time, are relative to each other, so one site being relatively better than another. But the scores themselves don't objectively mean a specific performance. If that makes sense.
Yeah, I guess it does, but you know,